Hi, everybody. I'd like to announce the presentation of our good friend and GCRG board member, Zeke Lauck. He's been our principal investigator for the Adopt a Beach long-term monitoring program, which I'm sure some of you have helped with over the years. And he's done that for a long, long time. He's got we have a photo record that goes back to 1996 when we started it, right before the first flood flow in Grand Canyon. And so anyway, welcome Zeke. We look forward to hearing you.
Thank you, Lynn. Thanks everybody for sticking around. I really do appreciate it. I hope that you find this informative and entertaining. I also would recommend that when we go to the slide presentation, which I'm trying to bring up right now, you'll want to get rid of my face because you'll want to see the whole screen. Take in all these photographs. This presentation has got 80 slides and about 120 photographs, so it's going to be pretty rapid. I'm going to start off with a little introduction on the background. The first few slides will have a lot of text. That's mostly because I want this program the slideshow rather, to stand on its own without having to have somebody explaining things. And so that's really, you don't have to pay any attention to the text. Then I'm going to get into probably a 30-second infomercial. Then we'll go into, I'm kind of thinking of as like the highlights reel. And then we're going to play a Guess That Beach game and see how many people know their beaches at different stages. So Adopt a Beach Repeat Photography Project, sponsored by Grand Canyon River Guides. It is still, come on there, machine. Well, this is not good. All right, my animation's not working. So if you want to stop record for a second, Lynn.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm going to pause it. Oops.
If the animation's not working, we're going to see about half of this show.
All right.
Sorry, this is a flaky piece of software. So after 13 years of scientific investigation by GCS folks, it was decided that the record decision said that there should be a beach habitat building flow. We now know this is a high flow experiment. Nice picture of Tuck up there taken afterwards. So a collaboration of guides and staff from GCES. One of those I know is with us. Andre was here a minute ago anyway. He was in on the inception of this. They decided that they'd put together a citizen science program that is a volunteer program to photograph these a select set of beaches both before and after the high flow, and then photograph them as they went down the river during the summer to check the changes that might come about from whatever reason. The initial funding and support came from Grand Canyon Conservation Fund. Gickmark decided that this was a good idea, and they started chipping in some money in 1997, and they're the primary funder for the program at the moment. Here's some results from that first high flow in 96. I love Zoroaster there. I think that's fantastic. And one of the things that it's interesting about Last Chance, you can see that there's a lot of new sand that's piled up there, but it doesn't look like it's really, really comfortable to camp on. And one of the things that drives home is that you can pile the sand higher, but it doesn't actually make it more campable. Not everything works so well. The crystal didn't really change much. Lower bass actually got scoured a little bit, as did below bedrock, just as samples. So for the first 15 years of the study, the volunteers collected photographs using 24-shot waterproof disposable cameras, similar to this Polaroid here. Most of them were Kodak, but we used them all. And processing the film was expensive. The results were not always of usable quality. It ended up finally that it was hard to find places to get the film processed. But that wasn't the only motivation. You get things like this. These are actually some of the better photos that came out of some of those rolls. And so decided to go with digital, and bought digital cameras that used AA batteries, so we didn't have to have proprietary batteries. And bought 45 of those initially, and we've, through attrition, we've tossed a few of those. A couple have been lost, and we've upgraded. Just got 3 more of them this spring. So ever since '96, people have been conducting this program. And the way this works is that volunteers, which is you all, everybody that goes by a beach, if you pick one or more of the 44 specific beaches that we're photographing during the year and take a photo of it when you go by, then you're contributing to the data set. When you sign up, you are given one of these nice cameras. Oops. You're given a sheet that's a little bit of an instructional. There's a little bit of procedure for this, but it's not that big a deal. On the flip side of that, there's some text that's talking points. Inevitably, you will get questions from your passengers about, well, why are we stopping? What are we doing? What's this for? And a big part of this program is to use this instance to educate the people that are on the river and to explain some of the things that have been going on and some of the reasons that this is of interest to a variety of people to track. You get a page that is a data sheet that you photograph, so that we've got a visual record that goes along with the photographic records. I've want everybody to take as many photographs as many beaches as possible, so I put 6 of those in each packet. If you think you're going to need more, we've always got more available. On the flip side of those is a very short, probably takes about 2 minutes, 3 minutes to fill out. It's mostly just check boxes, and it's just asking for your personal observations while you're standing there. You know, picture speaks 1,000 words, but 2 sentences on this page means an awful lot in the final report as well. And then, of course, we give you writing utensils to take care of all this. Along with this, in the packet, depending on the beach that you've chosen, you'll get some photos that look like this. All right, so we're at below bedrock is where this photo set is taken. And what the pictures will show you is, first off, where do you stand? Can everybody see my pointer? I hope. It's hard when you don't have a red laser pointer in your hand. So Emily's standing here. This is where I want you to stand to take the photographs. And most of the beaches, the photographs are taken in an overlapping series so that we can get as much included as possible. So this is from the far left. Moving over here to the right, this is the next overlapping photograph to the right. And then down here in the bottom right-hand corner, this would be the next photograph that you would take that overlaps the one previous. A couple of years ago, I started including these little red dots that you see on the page. They're so that you can actually identify a landmark, and as close as you can, get the dot in your camera center of the view on that landmark. And that helps because if I can get these to overlap, it helps with the analysis. It helps make sure that you're in the right place. Every once in a great while, we get photographs back from places that I can't figure out because I'm not familiar with where they actually were. So sometime this summer, as I go down the river, I'm going to start painting these red dots out there on the beaches for you. Maybe use a paint gun, pellet gun. And so that'll help everybody out. That's a joke. You should be laughing right now. So then at the end of the season, the cameras come back in and there's an analysis that's done. And it's a dichotomous analysis. It's pretty easy. First off, is there a change in the beach or no change? And by the way, this is all relative to our use, camping, river trip use. We're not talking about ecology particularly. It's all the analysis is done relative to how we're interacting with the beach. So if there is a change in the beach, did it improve or did it degrade? And what were the reasons for that change? real quick, we've got tuck up here. If I had a shot that was taken immediately prior to this that we could compare to, this would be a little bit easier. But so over here, we've got one of the largest rain scours for this particular beach that I've ever witnessed. That's, you know, pretty impactful. And that would be what would be considered to be a primary cause for change. Also, if you look across the front, I hope my cursor's working with you folks. So this is a cutback that is fluctuating flow recession. So as the water from the dam goes up and down, it comes in and it kind of gouges out a little bit of the sand. I've got a lot better photos of that coming up. I don't know in this particular instance if there's been any change in the vegetation because I haven't got a prior photo to show you all. So that's the way that goes. You get all kinds of things back. I would call that an improvement. I hope that you would agree. So we've got that horrific event that happened in 2018. And then because we had a high flow, we got our beach back. That's one of the successes. Here's Matcat. Kitchen is right up in here, back up against this wall. You need a bridge in order to be able to get to those campsites that are on the lower end here. And that was in July of 2014. So this is what it looked like after the high flow of 2017. This beautiful, beautiful picture of Shinemu Wash. We got a bowling alley. This is so nicely graded and it's such an inviting place to be. And if you turn around and you look the other direction, this is what you see looking back downstream. It's just an absolutely beautiful, expansive beach from a high flow. But there was a problem. The reason that Canyonier's boat is parked down on that end is because that's the only way we could figure out how to get up on top without doing some major excavation. Good question as to why this happened. And I'll go into that a little bit more here very soon. Just downstream a little bit further, Tatahatsu, the same thing. The front of the beach either got sheared off by the winter fluctuating flow regime or it calved off, probably a combination of both. In this particular instance, you had to go way down here to the far right in order to be able to get around, all this impenetrable brush to get up into that camp. So this photo, the next couple of photos were taken after the 2008 spring high flow. And unfortunately, these photos don't show it very well, and somewhere I have got better pictures of what I'm going to explain to you here, and I'm hoping that I can find them. But there are rivulets of water that are coming out of the sand here. And as those rivulets come out of the sand, they carry sand with them. Better example down here at Bass. You can see where there's been some water flowing out of the sand. It's really well defined over here on the far right, which coincides with this. And essentially what you've got is you've kind of got like a karst activity going on where the water is percolating through the sediment, through this rock layer. And as it does that, it starts to create cavities and it starts to carry the sand out, and then it calves off. So whether that was what created this, or whether that might have been, because this is a spring photo and it could have been from the winter flow regime, it's hard to say. But my guess is it's probably a combination of both. Another thing we look at is when we're talking about change in possible degradation is vegetation. Seems to have gotten a little out of hand in this particular instance. Not the only example. I'll pause here and say that Ben Reeder has informed me that the Park Service has been considering doing some vegetation eradication, and they had some suggested areas that they were going to do this. And he got a hold of me and he said, can you send me some photos of some areas that you think would be better candidates for having vegetation eradication on the beaches? And so I did. I sent him photos of Clear Creek, and other suggestions like upper cremation. I hope you all agree that if the park wants to come in and they want to take out some plants, it would be nice if they went ahead and did that in some place where we could best utilize that area. Another example of vegetation encroachment down at 110 Mile. All right, now this one is not quite as in your face as a general rule as, say, a rain gully or fluctuating flow erosion. This is Lower Tuna. Under that sand, you've got this. And that sand was not washed away. There may have been a little bit of it that went downhill during a rainstorm, but that was blown away. You've got wind erosion, wind deflation down there. And I honestly, I don't think, as much as we joke about it, I don't think the passengers are just loading this all in their dry bags to take it home. It's blowing around, and there's a lot of good examples of that. So this is the incredible growing rock at North Canyon. So the picture on the left is an earlier photo, and another year later, and it gets to this. And this is out of sequence, but looking back through the photos, this happened to be the photo that I thought showed that beach in one of its less desirable forms. And it probably that had a little bit of water impact from the river as well. Another perspective of it, because we like to get as many perspectives in the photographs as possible. So here we've got up on top of the beach looking downstream. And I want you, beside the rock's going to appear over here on the left, but keep an eye on this horizon line of sand that's at the far end of the beach down there. Because you got not only this rock appearing, but you got these coming out down there as well. And by the time you get to this, you've got a whole bunch of stuff that's exposed down on this end, which makes the usable area of the beach much smaller. Again, it's all wind. That's the only way that I can account for it. We've got human impact that we track. This happens to be at Matcat. This branch was not cut off cleanly. It was partially cut and then it was ripped off. It was laying off to the left actually when I took this photo. More often we get erosion from humans. This is what happened at Tatahatso after somebody finally got up on top. And every time you go up and down that, of course, the sand's coming downhill and it's going into the river and then it's going away. It's not quite as good a photograph over here. And you see a lot of this down at Upset, and got a lot of examples of it also down at Racetrack. This particular series of photographs was used, I believe, I may have this wrong, but I believe Sam Jansen used this series of photographs as a presentation in an AMWIG meeting to express what fluctuating flow cut bank erosion looks like. So we've got, that was April, this is May, slightly different perspective. June, July, August, September, they've started to back off on the higher flows from the summer regime, and October. So in six and a half months, that's how much sand is lost at that particular beach. So that series has been used as a demonstration to the higher powers to express what we consider to be detrimental flow regime as far as size of camps goes. Now, at the end of the season, collect the cameras, and I do an analysis and put all that into a report. And those are done annually. And those are all available for anybody to read if you were so interested. But the take home really is the last 2 pages, or sometimes 3 pages, depending upon if I'm doing a comparison with the most recent high flow. So these tables show on the left, it says 2016 to 2017. So this is what occurred, what I saw at the beaches as a result of the winter flow regime. You can tell quite easily that there was a high flow, come on, cursor, because of all of these X's that are under improved. That was a successful high flow for that winter. On the right, we've got a table that is just from that summer. So basically it's a 6-month period on each end. And it would, when it says no change, especially after you've had all this nice improvement over here from a high flow, that's a good thing. And then there's a little blurb off to the right of what the reasoning was behind giving it that designation. Of course, you can get a much more elaborate definition and explanation of that in the report. But if you want the quick and dirty, it ends up coming out like this. And by the way, I should explain that the study is divided into geomorphic reaches. So the upper, above the first blue line is the Marble Canyon Reach. And then we've got the Upper Granite Gorge Reach. Then we've got the Moab Gorge Reach. And then we've got the Lower Granite Gorge Reaches, which is below Diamond Creek. Remember back to that little information sheet that is on the back of the data sheet, the little information blurbs. That all goes into an Access database. So that gets filled in, and you can query it by water level. You can query it by date, by, you know, just, I guess, as many different ways as you can come up with a way to ask it the questions. And so that all gets recorded. As of the end of last year, Adopted Beach has over 16,400 images in the archives. We have almost 4,000 dated records in the database. Let's see, another thing that's happened recently, because we've got so many photographs now, the gallery that was accessible on the Grand Canyon River Guides website under Adopt a Beach program, we had to change servers on that. So we went to Flickr and refilled the Flickr page. And this is basically what that looks like. You can query for a particular beach, or you can query for a particular year, I believe, and it'll pull up all the photos that are relative to that beach. This is still in process. This is really a long process. And one of the things that I've done last fall and this winter is I've gone through every one of the photos to make sure that it's labeled correctly, that it really is the beach that it says it is, that it's usable. I had to toss a few out because they weren't of quality that you could see much of anything. But anyway, if you want to find out when this nice sand deposited Shinamou was created, I invite you to come over to the Flickr gallery and locate it. So in February, Lynn and I had a meeting with Paul Grams and the people up at Gickmerk, and relative to the Adopt a Beach online presence. And what they want to do is they want to instill a dedicated Adopt a Beach page on their website. They want to include a full gallery of all the photos. They want to include digital access to all the reports and all the resulting tables. They want to have people have the ability to query the database for observations and comments. They talked about a possible increase in funding. And this isn't directly related to Adopt a Beach, but I was asked to pass this information on. They're still trying to get more and more information about how much sediment is coming into the system. And what they have asked is that anytime you pass a recent flash flood or anything that's bringing sediment into the river or has recently brought something into the river, if you could please get onto the Gickmerk website and inform Paul Grams that you saw a result of some possible sediment feed into the main stem. They would really appreciate that. Like I said, we only cover 44 beaches. Some of their beaches that they photograph overlap ours and some do not, but it's still a pretty small sample set when you consider the whole 250 miles. So all this data is public. Anybody that wants access to it to use it is welcome to. It's used to initiate discussions with the passengers. Like I said, you know, educate them a little bit while you're taking some photos. Or if you want, you can ask to take some photos with you just to talk about them. It's used by Gickmerk to evaluate beach change. All the adaptive management stakeholders get a copy of the annual report. And it has been used in presentations with the NPS and the adaptive management groups to visually express erosion through fluctuating dam releases An example of that is the one at Talking Heads that I showed you earlier. Results of high flow experiments. We've submitted a lot of PowerPoint slideshows where they can see how things went for what kind of result they got for their money, I guess you might be able to say. It's used for evaluation of vegetative impacts in the camping area. I talked about that. And then there's the other thing, back to the calving and steepness of the frontage of the beaches. One of the things on June 24th, Ben Reeder is going to go into his twig meeting, and he is going to give a small presentation that is going to try to express our desire for them to experiment with a slow down ramp. Hopefully it will stop some of that where the water takes the sand back into the main stem. It might help smooth things out, make it easier for us. It also might make it easier for the sand to get washed away. We really don't know. But we would like to see them give it a try. And there is talk about doing another spring high flow when it's appropriate. I don't remember what the regulations in the LTEMP are right off the top of my head, but it is being discussed. The last one was in 2008, by the way, to the best of my knowledge. So there's also been a descriptive essay written by R. Lynn Hamilton. It was included in this book by Andy Gilliford, who's a professor up at Fort Lewis College in Durango. The Adopt a Beach program has been used as a prototype for other repeat photography programs. And it's an exemplary citizen science program by people that are monitoring a place that's near and dear to them. I can tell you that if you volunteer to take photos of a beach, you get pretty intimate with that particular beach. It's a lot more than if, oh yeah, we always camp here and so I'm always in the kitchen, or there's some other activity that always seems to distract me. When you stop for the 15 or 20 minutes that it takes to take some photos of the beaches, you get to know them pretty well, and you develop an even higher stewardship awareness of the beach just by the opportunity to do this. Okay, this is going to be what I'll call a little highlights reel. It's just some of the interesting stuff that's come in over the years. Here's Kennex stopped at North. The person that was on that trip that was the volunteer took their photos, and those photos were taken at 10:15 in the morning. I imagine they went on their hike. I imagine they came back to have lunch. I can very, very easily imagine that it started raining. And by 1:15, this is what the beach looked like. Excuse me. Just a phenomenal case of being at the right place at the right time to get a good set of photographs. Another example of being almost in the wrong place at the wrong time. This is Hatanana in early July of 2018. And then I've already shown you this and you're all probably quite familiar with it. As best as I've been able to calculate, this photo was taken the morning after that event happened. And you had all that water that came rushing down this spillway and rolled over that beach and basically took it away. Taking photographs in a hurricane is not something that I would recommend, Laura. I do believe that this is a Laura Fallon photo. I'm pretty sure. She volunteered at Buck Farm for quite a while. I'm amazed that if you got a tip off of this trip, they were thinking seriously about maybe reneging on that when you stopped to take this photograph. But thank you very much anyway. Really lucky with this set. The photographer Brad Demick stopped to take photo of Olo, and the next time, or not the next time he stopped, but 2 weeks later, there's a flash flood. And then 2 weeks later, you can see the results down there at the bottom. And Brad puts together a lot better mosaics than I do. I think that might be because he's working with Apple. So this is an example of what this whole thing is about. How's it change over the years, or not change? Some things don't change much down there. So this is 19.4 on the left, just above North Canyon on that bend. And this was the before photo, or no, excuse me, this was the after photo. So this was in June of 96. 2005, not a whole lot of change. A little bit of sand's moved around. It's still your basic pull up, walk up into the trees there. There's, you know, you got that swamp that's kind of back here on the right-hand side to everybody can go sleep in. This is after the that 2008 spring high flow event, which was very nice. But then this happened, and we've got sand out there from the high flow event the previous fall that was as big as a couple of football fields, but it didn't stay around for very long, which I found was really, really interesting. This just happens to be a pretty active little bay that we've got here. And this is what it looked like on my last trip last September. I took that one. Just to show that it can happen anywhere, anytime, to anyone. You can get this. Lower National, unfortunately, I don't have a midsummer photograph taken for this year. Between this photograph and the next one, which was in November, there was another flash that came out of National. It turned the corner and brought a bunch of rock down here, and it moved this whole beachhead downstream 30, 40 meters. But this is what that looked like with 42,000 running over it. This was during the high flow of 2013. Okay, Laura, if you would turn everybody's, excuse me, mics on. This will be a group participation. I'm going to show you a photograph of a beach, and I want you to shout out what the beach is. Some of these I'm sure are going to be quite easy. Some of them, I don't think they will be.
Zeke, just kind of a quick time check before we get in there too deep. We're about 30 minutes into your talk, and just want to be sensitive to people's time, so we can definitely keep going. But
Right.
But as people need to kind of drop off, we understand your time is valuable, and as you need to, feel free to do that. But I will go ahead and unmute that, and we'll try to wrap this up in the next 10 minutes or so.
Yeah,
questions included.
This should be less than 10. Who knows where this is? Anybody?
Above Blacktail on the left.
Wrong side, Andre. This is Big Dune on the right.
Oh,
Yep. How about this one? Tadahatsu.
Tadahatsu.
All right, this is not photoshopped.
it's never.
Ants.
Neville's. It is Neville's.
That's gorgeous.
Isn't that phenomenal? There's a lot of sand to blow into your food there when you're cooking. How about this one? Sorry, my mosaics don't work quite as well as Brad's were.
That racetrack?
Nope.
That's an inscription. No.
Is that Zoroaster? No.
Nope.
Kind of in that region?
Nope.
Huh.
These aren't in order, by the way. As far I mixed them up as far as River Mile, by the way. This is Lower Boucher.
Huh.
And I wanted, one of the things that's fascinating about photographing this site, all of the sand that's over here on the far right-hand side, that is all wind blown. Those are big dunes that have come off from the sand off of this beach and blown back upstream. How about this one? I imagine this will be a lot tougher for anybody that hasn't been on the water for quite a while. This is Fall Canyon, mile 212. At some point, 6 or 7 years ago, there was a high flow that sheared this off, and then it got quickly overgrown with some really obnoxious grasses and camel thorn, and nobody ever stops there anymore. And I have never seen any camping well, let me rephrase that. I haven't seen anybody camp there in quite a while. I don't think I've stayed there since 2000 or maybe earlier. How about this?
Lower to Beats?
Lower to Pete's. It's an amazing shot, isn't it?
Nice.
I happened to take that on a Park Service trip, and there were 2 groups camped at this beach. That's how big it was. How about that?
Lower Garnet, right?
That's right. It's Lower Garnet. You keep stealing all of them there, Andre.
Sorry. Shut up.
This one's foreshortened. It's a lot bigger than it appears. And I'll give you a clue. This is the river over here on the right, and it's flowing towards you. This is the mouth of Kanab.
Mm.
And I want to say about 3 months later, a flash flood came and took all of this away and left nothing except for that row of arrowweeds back there. How about this? You've all camped here.
220, yeah.
Upper 220. Now we're all kind of relegated to this down here when, before that gets washed away again.
Upper Garnet.
Yep. Upper Garnet. There's a lot of sand up on top of that. How about this?
It's right below Three Springs.
Yep. Probably my favorite camp, right across from Three Springs, 216 mile. All right, this is not a trick.
That's below Elves above that Big Dune camp.
That's right. That's right. 118 mile. There is a shelf underneath this. Excuse me, I should restate that. This Tapeats makes a big shelf, and you can fit a full kitchen in a rainstorm under there and be perfectly dry. Unfortunately, what sand is left there is now full of impenetrable tamarisk. That used to be a great place. You could stay at Elves until way late and just go around the corner and you'd be at camp. I threw this one in just because of the handstand.
Is that
Big
stone?
That's
Is that
stone.
stone? Yeah.
Yeah, big rapid back here in the back. Here's a different perspective of this camp.
Is it kind of the inscription area? No, that can't be it.
I think you're close.
Oh, is that Ross Wheeler?
That's Ross Wheeler.
Wow, cool. I love the color of the water.
Yeah, and you can see the sand shelf in there too. All right, this is one you've all camped at. And Andre, you took photographs of this for a long time. I don't know if you still are or not. This is Matt Cat.
Matt Cat, yeah.
Right after the 2008 high flow. All right, here's a different perspective on this one.
Clear Creek?
Nope.
Trinity?
Trinity. Yeah. This one should be easy. Add a lot more trees.
Ross Wheeler, not Ross Wheeler, racetrack?
Racetrack, exactly. This one's a little harder. The Wittes Martin guide calls this Wallapai Acres, about 194 on the left. You can't even hardly find the sand there now for all the vegetation. This is just too pretty to pass up.
This is Martha's.
It's Martha's, that's right. Isn't that nice?
I think I took that picture.
Thank you very much. All right, this is a little more difficult. And I'll tell you right now that if you look up in the upper right-hand corner,
Yeah,
I left
that's
it-
hands.
it's Hans. I left this rapid in there just so that would give you a clue. Since we all scout on the right now, nobody seems to go here except for the hikers. But it's still in our data set and we still take photographs of it every year. And we'll end up with this one. There's an upstream view and a downstream view.
Like national.
Yeah.
Yeah, it used to look like this and then it turned into this. And we're still tracking that and still waiting for some sand to be deposited so we can go to camping there again. And I threw this in just because I ran across it in the data set, and it's a picture that I took a few minutes after we had run lava in a driving snow, sleet, hail storm. It was one of the most miserable 30 seconds I've ever had in my entire life. But the reason I included it is because the next day it looked like this.
That's awesome. Snow.
So thank you very much for participating.
Thank you, Zeke.
Great photos. Well, I think
Well,
not
I
everyone.
had 16,000 to choose from, you know.
I know that everyone is not unmuted, so if you feel like taking a moment to unmute yourself, and we can give a little round of applause to Zeke.
Yay! Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wonderful photos. Great game. Thanks for sticking around, everyone.